All right, friends, this is the Lenovo Legion 7i Gen 7, and below it is the 7 Gen 7, so not the i. That means this is an AMD-powered machine. It's all AMD CPU, AMD GPU, and it is loaded to the max. This thing it's super powerful, it's awesome, and it's very similar in design. In fact, almost identical to the Legion 7i. The thing is that neither one of these is really available anymore. It's going to be so hard for you to get your hands on it, and it was really hard for me to get my hands on it, which is why this is kind of a late video if you think about the life cycle of the product. In fact, Lenovo have already announced the 8th generation, but the design is much different. And as typical, the year-over-year performance gains are not so substantial that if you buy, if you can find it, the Gen 7, you're not going to feel like you're missing out on the Gen 8. So there's still some relevance to this video, otherwise I guess you wouldn't be here. But I'm going to do a more in-depth video of the 7i later, because this is the one I spent most of my time with. But I did want to make sure that I covered the Legion 7 at least a little bit. It's a nice machine. If you can get your hands on it, I think you'll be really happy. It's just not quite as powerful on the GPU side as the Legion 7i. So now both machines are loaded to the max. These are review units from Lenovo. They're very kind to send out their best so that we who do these kind of things can talk about the best machines. Okay, so this particular model, this is 16-inch machine. It's pretty darn heavy at about 5.5 pounds, but it has a lot to offer. So you have a 2560 by 1600 pixel resolution display. It's very bright. They rate it at 500 nits, but I really don't know. It's got solid nits. It's got good nits. Now this is loaded with a Ryzen 9 6900HX, but you can also get it with a 6800H, which is a Ryzen 7 processor. You can get it with a 6700M GPU, which has 10 gigabytes of GDDR6 RAM, but this model loaded to the max has a 6850M XT with 12 gigabytes of GDDR6 RAM. It's powerful. You're not going to be disappointed by it, and there's a price advantage, back when these were more readily available, to the AMD model versus the Intel model, but still, if you get the Intel model, it's just going to have better performance on games by, depends on the game, 5 to 12%, something like that. Now, I haven't quantified all of this too much. I played a couple of games, actually mostly Marvel's Midnight Suns, which is it's a demanding game, but it's not a high FPS kind of game. I was so hooked on it. It's all I could play. And I sunk about 60 hours into it, almost entirely on the Legion 7i. I played a little bit on the 7. I noticed a good 10 to 20 frames per second lower. Plus, but then on the other hand, on the NVIDIA-based Legion 7i model, boy, there's some weird stuff going on, which I'll get into when I do that in-depth video, a separate video on that one. Both of these models have 32 gigabytes of RAM, but remember I said that they're mostly identical. There's a key difference, and that is that the AMD model doesn't support Thunderbolt 4. So, with the absence of that, everything I'm going to show you here today will be very similar to the upcoming video about the 7i, but now let's focus 100% on the Legion 7. Build. This is an all-metal design. Now, the new Legion 7 Gen 8, gosh, it's hard to keep track of all this stuff. They did something very interesting. So, these side grills here, let me get this in frame. What we have here is just this beautiful brushed aluminum on the side, and then the lid sits kind of recessed into it, and then you get a taper on the bottom part, which is also metal. On the new one, there's this big chunky, it looks like an ABS plastic sitting over the vent. Now, I'm not sure why Lenovo did this, so I sent an email over to my contacts in PR, and I asked them, hey, why'd you guys do this? I haven't heard anything back yet, but CES was a couple weeks ago. I'm sure these folks are all very busy. I'll try to find out by the time I do the Legion 7i video if I can. But the point is, I think they did it because this gets really hot to the touch. So the way I was gaming was on my lap most of the time. It's kind of hard to describe the scenario, but effectively I was in such a position during those 60 or so hours with the Legion 7i that I wanted this on my lap, and I couldn't tolerate it unless I was wearing long pants or something. So if this is on your skin, you're not going to love it. It gets pretty hot. Okay, so we have a USB-C port, a hardware switch for the camera, so you get a privacy shutter, and a headphone jack. And then right here is where the lighting begins. I'll show you this in a little bit, but the lighting goes mostly around the entire thing. and it looks awesome. You'll notice that the lid just popped up. Now for a $3,000 laptop at the high end to I think $2,100 to start if it's not on sale, man, Lenovo missed out on a golden opportunity to give this a premium touch. This should have a magnetic clip on it, but unfortunately it doesn't. The feet don't stick out too much, and I like that. Here's what the front looks like. Now I mentioned that the display is recessed into the base, which is true, but there is this lip here as well, and in really solid fashion, Lenovo, sorry for all the bouncing, I gotta get a better setup here, but the Legion logo is etched into this lip. So when you come over here to lift it open, you're reminded that you paid a lot of money for your laptop. On the other side, you'll see where that lighting begins again. More on that in a bit. 2 more USB-C ports. And then on the back, boom, identical to the Legion 7i, Ethernet, USB-C, HDMI, 2 USB-A ports, and your proprietary power port for your Lenovo Legion. Power. Oh my gosh. Let's talk about power. Let me grab it. If you wanted to carry another 1.5 pounds or 2 pounds, you came to the right place. This 300 watt power supply is huge. I mean, here it is next to the Logitech G Cloud. I don't know, weird comparison. It was just sitting on my desk. I'll probably review that, but I didn't get it from Logitech. I bought it myself. Okay, so big power supply, also gets warm. 300 watts seems, it's a lot, but it's there. All right. Now, you'll notice back here that the ports are labeled. And one of the really cool things that Lenovo did this year, they also did it last year on the 7, but it's not available on the 5, is they label it and they allow it to light up, which you can disable if you want by holding down function and pressing U, I believe, but we'll verify that here in a second. While this is booting up from a complete, it's completely off before I turned it on, a few things to note. So holding down function and space is going to load some previously, like some default lighting settings on the device. So function spacebar, you get different things here. There is no Corsair iQ. You don't have to worry about that this year. In years past, I think going back to the 5th generation, there was a battery drain issue. So that's all gone. There is no, despite being a $3,000 plus laptop, there is no facial recognition, but you do have a fingerprint reader, and it works pretty well. But it's first time logging in from a dead boot, so I had to type in my PIN. So again, function space is going to change those settings on the lighting. This is probably the one you've seen the most. It's this rainbow setting where it sort of like rotates around. You can go into the Lenovo Vantage software and you can personalize the lighting to do different things. You can use any one of these 5 or 6 different presets as a template and then modify from there if you like, or of course, start from the ground up. Now the lighting looks exceptional. It's very bright. It's just super cool. It adds a nice touch to the whole device. You can also light up the Legion logo here in the back. And then I mentioned these in the back here. So those change. It's actually kind of neat. So a lot of the cool sort of performance settings that you can tune on the fly, they start by holding down function. So what Lenovo have done, and this is not new for this year, I think this goes back 1 generation, you hold down function and then you'll notice that Q, R, U, L, space, and then the up and down arrow, plus all the function row keys, those are all lit up. So I didn't remember exactly what button did what. I remember function Q, that's been around for a long time. That's where you can change your performance settings from battery saver, cool and quiet, performance mode. Performance only works if you're plugged in, by the way. But I couldn't remember. Okay, yeah, refresh rate. Yeah, you can change from 165 to 60 by function R. But what the heck is the lighting on the back? Well, because of this, Lenovo reminds you, oh, this is how you do it. So function U is going to turn off that lighting here. Now you wondered about the logo. Function L is going to turn off the logo. So very easy. You hold down function. Eventually you'll memorize this, of course, but at least in the interim, here you go. Not too bad. You get the the help here from Lenovo. You can adjust the brightness of the backlight on 3 stages, and then of course you've got your typical media function row to do typical media and function things. No surprises there. Alrighty, what's next? Okay, trackpad. So I primary on a MacBook Pro 14, so for me, trackpads across Windows devices are difficult to get back into comfort with. I tried playing Midnight Suns with the touchpad instead of a mouse, and it wasn't ideal. I eventually had to change my setup. Even in a pinch, I just had a mouse with me in my backpack because, man, it's just, these trackpads are not at MacBook level. Now, Lenovo does have a really nice trackpad they introduced in 2022 with their Z series. So it's a ThinkPad line, Z13, Z16, where it has that, click anywhere, haptic feedback, magnetic, very nice. I'd love to see that as the trackpad on their other devices, but I think it's polarizing. I think if you're used to a Windows machine, you've never really bought in the Apple ecosystem, you don't really know what you're missing out on. And I'm not like a Mac guy, I'm just best technology kind of guy. And I mean, that's why I love Lenovo laptops and I love Apple work computers. You kind of, if you can afford it, it's a great way to live. Okay, where was I going? So trackpad is fine. I think it's really good for a Windows machine, but it's not at Mac level, but it's fine. It's glass and all that happy stuff. The speakers are not good. So they're a little bit hollow and muddy. Now you could install, what's it called? Nihilic? Someone's yelling at me right now. But so Lenovo does have some kind of like license with another driver company. And if you install those drivers, some say you get better sound. So I went through on various Reddit subs and I was trying to figure out what Nihilic? God, what the hell is it called? And it's polarizing. I'd say majority of people say it sounds good if you turn on that software and let it run. For me, I don't care that much about sound, so I was just dealing with it. If I were watching a lot of YouTube or maybe even doing a lot of work calls on this thing, then I may want to have better speakers. But, even with that software installed, I imagine it doesn't sound as good as my MacBook, which is where I do most of my work. I mean, it's where I do all of my work, really. I don't have anything work-related installed on here. However, if I were to do work on this machine, I think it would be fine because as an AMD system with all these settings that you could tune, like reducing the refresh rate, turning off the backlighting, and dropping it into quiet mode with the function Q button, I think you can actually get decent battery life on this thing. So I tested it a little bit myself by using it for web browsing and such. But there are a lot of outfits, a lot of people out there who spend their time like really digging into these machines and run them through consistent benchmarks and tests. So go over to PC Mag and check out their review. I would link it in the description, but honestly, I'm going to forget that I even referenced it. And from there, you'll see some battery life tests. So on the AMD model, not specifically referencing PC Mag, but from the research I was doing, people are getting like 6-7 hours. I saw one guy on Reddit, so just a typical user like us, he had posted, he got 8 hours, and what he had done is he dropped the resolution from Quad HD to 1080p. I mean, that's great. I probably would not bother doing that because I'm just way too lazy and I want native resolution. All right. One of the cool things about all this function changer settings thing is that Lenovo will tell you, right? So I just dropped it to 60 Hertz with function R and it told me. Function Q is, there we go. It's in auto mode. I press it again. It switched here to blue and it's this guy saying, shh, be quiet. And it's probably sending me a message that I should wrap this up. And anyway, it goes into quiet mode, which is very helpful. Let's get it. Oh, crap. Yeah, what the heck. All right. Same thing is true for like adjusting your brightness. You always get feedback, which is very helpful. And you know kind of what's going on. So you get that nice thing. Now, even on the backline, this is new for this generation, Gen 7. Those presets, which you can change, by the way, in the Lenovo Vantage software, which is one of the better, by the way, softwares for gaming laptops. It'll tell you which template you're on, or which, not template, but preset that you're on just by pressing function and spacebar. Okay, so what more can I say about this? It is a absolutely premium built machine. Lenovo really outdid themselves here, and I think that this design change for Gen 8, if you haven't seen it, the one I referenced with that ABS plastic on the side, I don't know if it's ABS plastic, just looks like it. I think that's going to turn some people off. And, unfortunately with, the virus of unknown origin, freaking out in China, plants were shut down, or at least, in addition to that, there was time they were operating not at max capacity. It's hard to get your hands on the 7th generation, which I think is such a shame because right now, I bet you they'd be flying off the shelves. These are so well built. They're so good. They're just good machines. It's almost like, man, if you wanted something thinner and lighter, like you're looking at the wrong machine. It's just, I understand this is 5.5 pounds, like 7 pounds with the charger or whatever, but it is such a good laptop. And I think that if you want a single device, you could probably play with this a little bit to get that better battery life, maybe the 8 hours like that one person had posted. But man, this is just such a good machine. Like, I was drawn, especially to the 7i because of the better performance. I was really drawn to it for gaming, and I was using my Steam Deck less. I mean, obviously, if I'm home, I'd want to use a gaming laptop, if I want to be like away from the family. But the Steam Deck could hold a video. Okay, back on track, Joe. So yeah, awesome machine. Unfortunately, hard to get right now. If you can find it, do it, but don't buy from like weird places like eBay. Buy from official retailers if you can find it at a retail store like a Best Buy or B&H, directly from Lenovo, although right now the Lenovo website says available soon, which is way better than discontinued, like way better. But right now it just says available soon. If you can get your hands on this, I think you'll be very happy. Awesome device from Lenovo. And as I mentioned, I will get a better and more in-depth review talking about benchmarks and such with the 7i model. One more thing to mention, everybody, is that if you do actually want something slimmer and lighter, but you love how this looks, I refer you to my Legion Slim video. The Slim is the laptop to get if you really need portability, but you want to do some gaming. It doesn't come close to the performance of this device, but it still feels premium and really substantial. It looks very similar. The ports are different, but generally the design language is the same, and you get great premium device, great build quality, awesome display, good performance for how thin it is, and not as hard to get. You can go into Best Buy and pick up one of those. So, all right, those are my thoughts on the 7, and I will have more to share about the 7i another time. Cheers.